Hey, Teresa, welcome to the Stellar Work Podcast.
Hi, Ben. I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Hey, I wanted to reach out. Your book, Continuous Discovery Habits, is out now for 5 years, and there's a reading going on. And I thought this is a cool time to catch up, not only to revisit, but maybe also to see what happened with you in the past, correct me if I'm wrong, about 1.5 years. You pretty much transformed from the topic of product management more into, I almost wanted to say, you become an AI engineer.
Yeah, it's been a pretty crazy transformation. I think a lot of people are going through this. I mean, AI really allows us to learn new skills, and we're sort of seeing some of the roles collapse into these builder roles. I'm not convinced everybody is going to go down this path, but I love that it's now possible for people. And I wouldn't say I left product management. I feel like it's more about everything getting rolled into. I just like being able to build things for people. Whereas I think product management is defining what to build and engineering is building it. And now we can kind of do all of that in one role.
So how has that affected your work when you look back at how it was before and how it is now with the AI skills harness that you have?
Yeah,
do you still think that there's like a team, and or would you say that for the discovery part, it's just you only need one person with good taste, and that's basically it?
I don't love this whole narrative around just good taste and that's all you need, because I feel like this is a way for Silicon Valley. I'm going to call them elitists because this is a very elite thing to say. Like, the idea is I have taste and you don't, so my opinion is better than yours. That's
it
how I
reminds me
feel
a bit
like
of a Steve Jobsy type of attitude that you have to bring.
It's this like great man myth of like, you'll just have taste and you'll know exactly what to build and you'll build the right thing. But I think we see a lot of evidence that's just not true. And I don't think a founder's taste matters. I think their customer's taste is what matters. And can the founder match the taste of their customer? And so what's hard is there's some truth to this idea of taste. This is why it's popular and why it's resonating. I think there's a few elements to it. There's aesthetics. We have a whole science of aesthetics and a whole art of aesthetics. And aesthetics clearly matter. I don't think the way people talk about taste, they mean aesthetics, because they talk about taste as you just need to be exposed to tasteful things. That's not how we learn aesthetics. Like, people go to art school and learn the science of aesthetics, and then they develop a practice of art to learn their own style of aesthetics. And even as an artist, your art doesn't resonate with everybody. It resonates with your fans, and right? So like, this is very mangled, I think. I think what people really mean is something that has always been true, which is judgment. But I also think AI is going to get really good at judgment. So I feel like this whole track is kind of a farce. And I think like what doesn't change, but people don't want to do this, so they come up with all these other words like product sense and product taste, is if we want to build good products for humans, we have to do the work to understand those humans, who they are, what they need, the context in which they work. And so it's about
doing
them.
The discovery and running the iterations on the
market. I mean, it's about your customer. It's not about you.
What has changed for you when you took on this role? I mean, I wouldn't say it's quite the jump, but it was still a very new thing to do, I'd say, to go from, like, when you look at let's maybe decouple it a bit. When you look at the role of, let's say, product manager, maybe doing discovery, and you would run interviews, you would write PRDs, those would be put into a roadmap. I know all of these are like probably not the way you should do things today, but you did all of that. Just imagine you did all of that, and now suddenly you have to work yourself into what is an MD file? How do I use the terminal? How was that for you when you transitioned from that one field into the AI engineering field?
Yeah, so first of all, I'm not sure I was ever a typical product manager. I will share I've never written a PRD, not once in my entire life. There was maybe about an 8-month period of my life where I managed a backlog. why is this? Like, I had the title of product manager for many years. I always worked at early stage startups. I always worked on 0 to 1 products. I feel like the way product management works in those environments is very different. Although I think all of us are going to start to experience what it's like to work that way very quickly here. I mostly worked with engineers as a product manager using prototypes, sometimes user stories for a little while, but in the true sense of user stories, like they were a placeholder for a conversation, not a requirements document. And so, I mean, part of the reason why I became a discovery coach is for decades now, it seems like the practice of product management has been focused in the wrong area. It's been really focused on rituals and ceremony and documentation and pushing paper around. And I fully appreciate
like process-oriented organizations.
Yeah, and I've worked with I've coached teams at a lot of big companies, and I fully appreciate why that world is needed, right? Like when you have 17 stakeholders that need to sign off on something. But I'm not really convinced anybody ever read these documents or they were ever that useful. I think they were symptoms of sort of, as companies grow big, their bureaucracies grow bigger. Mm. They were sort of CYA activities, if you're familiar with that acronym. And I don't, like, this part of product management never really interested me. What always interested me was, how do we really understand our customers? How do we make good decisions about what to build? How do we make sure that we're building the right thing? And so it's always been on the discovery side. Now, the other part where I'm not a typical product manager is I do have a little bit of an engineering background. Now, I was not by any means an engineer, but I did take computer science classes as an undergrad. I started my career as a front-end web developer, but I want to be really clear about what that means. I started my career in the 90s as a front-end web developer when there were no frameworks. JavaScript was fairly new. Like, I had never worked with databases. When we talked about version control in those days, you like checked out a single file at a time. Nothing like what we have with Git today. So I wasn't a novice. I wasn't a novice with the terminal. I'd actually used the terminal quite a bit. And so this gave me a pretty significant leg up. But I also want to share, like, I hadn't done any of this stuff in 15 years. So I don't want people to hear this and say, oh, Teresa can do this because she's been an engineer. I actually think we all can do this now. We just have to not be afraid of the unknown.
Yeah. And it becomes easier and easier. Like, I don't think you have to use the terminal. We will probably get into agent orchestrator and all of the different UIs that you can pull up as a non-technical person. What I was wondering is, like, this could go down a very different path as well. As I see with all the, like, when I think about my last project that I did with a larger client, it was a very big corporation. What people did is they said they were using AI for discovery, for product management tasks. But what they really were doing is they were copy-pasting their Teams transcript into an agent, creating a PRD, putting that into a SharePoint. Another person would use their agent to summarize that even further down into like 2 or 3 sentences to then go in a meeting and pitch something. So I think we have all the power through those tools to run iterations more quickly, to be more closer, more customer focused, I think. But there's also the temptation of over processing and over documenting things, especially in those companies where you see output is the valuable thing. Like, oh, I've done the file is here, check mark, right? That's what people want to see. Do we have the PRD? Is the project already in Jira? All of these types. So what would you recommend organizations that want to prevent that path, or maybe are on it and they want to get back to a more honest use of AI when it comes to doing product discovery?
I think there are organizations where all that documentation is required. And I think it's nice that AI can help us do that, because the documentation is not the job. Right? And like, I know for a lot of people that has been their job for a long, long time, because that's what their company rewards. But I don't think it's the fun part. Like, I don't know about you, but it doesn't sound very fun to sit down and write a product requirements document. I think the fun part is really the figuring out what to build, really the like understanding who your customers are, understanding your business constraints, the problem solving, the creativity that goes into that. And so I think even if you're being asked to be a paper pusher, I mean, sure, use AI to accelerate some of that. But I think I think even in the largest companies with the most bureaucratic processes, the most successful PMs are the ones that realize that's not the job. Even when it's directly being asked of them, they realize their job is to figure out how to solve this puzzle that is within their organization of creating something for their customers that works within the business constraints and figures it out. And I think a lot of people, David Brooks recently wrote an article in The Atlantic where he talked about like who's going to thrive in the AI age. And I think what he wrote is universal and it applies even before AI. And the gist of what he wrote was that there's going to be some people that use AI to help them think better. And there's going to be some people that use AI to think for them. And I think this is the same, like in big bureaucratic companies. I think some people let the documentation become the job. And some people continued to think for themselves. And the documentation was a side effect of their work. And I think like, we're not very comfortable as humans saying that like some people are better at their jobs than other people. And I don't mean this in the elitist sense of I have taste and you don't have taste. I mean it in the like effortful sense of like some people are in the right role. They're passionate about what they do. They care a lot. Their organization supports the way they want to work and they're really effective. And I think some people, their job is a job. They're not that passionate about it. They show up. Maybe their organization doesn't really support them in the right way, and that's part of it. So I'm not going to put it all on the individual. But a lot of us are just going through the motions. And I think that's like one of the most overwhelmingly depressing things about humanity is that we spend like 40 plus hours a week doing something that we don't care that much about. And not all of us have the privilege to fix that. So again, I'm not judging anybody who's in that type of role. But like my hope is that AI changes things so much that every once in a while, every one of us can like look around and be like, okay, the whole world is changing. How do I at least just take one step towards something that sounds a little bit more fun? Right? Like when everything changes, we are going to change with it. Let's use this opportunity to like step into something we are a little bit more passionate about, where we do want to think hard, where we do want to engage fully with the problem. And I think, I look at this as a huge opportunity for folks because I think, especially at these large companies, there's a lot of kind of crummy jobs. Maybe we let AI take the crummy jobs and we be brave and step into something that might be a little bit of a better fit for ourselves.
How could AI support running faster iterations when it comes to product discovery? What are the tools that you use or tools that you recommend or maybe skills that you wrote for yourself?
Yeah, this is a hard question because it really depends on your skill with discovery. So like I don't have any universals here. I can't say AI is great at synthesis. AI is great at synthesis if you're good at synthesis and you know how to teach the AI how to be good at synthesis. If you're bad at synthesis and you're just dumping your transcripts into notebook-LM, it's going to tell you something about what you learned from your interviews, but it's probably not going to be the most valuable nuggets. It's probably not going to have much depth. It's going to be very surface level.
And when you say you have to teach the AI how to do synthesis, you mean you have to write down a skill or write a very elaborate prompt on what you want it to look at?
Yeah, if you just say, hey, what's interesting in this transcript? It doesn't know. It doesn't know what's interesting to you. There's lots of ways to synthesize an interview, so you have to give it a point of view of how do you want to synthesize it. We do have like general academic theories about how to synthesize a qualitative interview. And you can say like, use grounded theory to tell me what's interesting in this interview. That's not how grounded theory works. Grounded theory works based on you have a general theory of what you're looking for in the interviews. And first of all, I don't think most product teams are even familiar with like the theory behind qualitative research and qualitative coding.
Honestly, me neither. And I did like 3 weeks ago, I did like 27 full-hour interviews in 1 week. And I have to admit.
Yeah, most people don't, right? Like, it's not our job to know how to do those things. And so I think, like, can AI be used for synthesis? Yes, I'm building a tool for AI to help you do synthesis. But the reason why I'm building a tool is because I want to make sure, like, I could give you a prompt, but it turns out to get good value out of AI for interview synthesis in particular, it's more than a prompt. Right? So that I don't think there's a magic prompt that's going to get the AI to do exactly what you want it to do in all contexts. Like, it's messier than that. I need to know your outcome. I need to know a little bit about your context. I need to write some good prompts that include the sort of expertise about how we're going to synthesize the interviews. But there also needs to be feedback loops to make sure that the AI didn't hallucinate. There needs to be quality controls to make sure that the opportunities are framed correctly. There's a whole product behind this, not just a prompt. And I think people underestimate that, because you can just give ChatGPT or Claude a prompt and it will tell you some interesting things you learned in the interview. But I'm of the belief that if you're going to take the time to do 27 interviews, we should treat that like gold. 27 customers gave you some of their time. You spent a lot of time on that. And we should be doing deep, rich synthesis on that, not shallow, give me an insight that I probably already knew.
Yeah.
Right?
So what I did, I was creating we use Notion at my company. So we created a Notion wiki-LLM in the style of what Andrei Karpathy described. And we put all the interviews inside that Notion database, and each interview had a certain structure. It was always the question we're asking, why we're asking that, what type of answers are we looking for, and how, and then on the parent page to that database in Notion, we had a script that describes the whole value chain of our customers creating value. We're okay, you have to, with each interview, you have to locate that interview on the value chain, and you have to see whether that is part of the bottleneck or not.
Okay.
And then on a second database, we matched it with ticketing data from operations on the same value chain. This is not really scientific, I have to admit, but it was the best idea that we came out with.
Yeah. What I like about what you just described is you're giving it structure. I would encourage you to go one level deeper. I would take the time. And again, this is going to depend on your synthesis skill, right? So if you're not well-trained in interview synthesis, you might not catch gaps. And that's okay, right? Like I said, you're probably not a trained researcher. But what I see with AI is if you take the time to give it a little bit of structure like you have, if you have a reasonably good prompt, it is as good and way faster than the average product team. The challenge I have with that is the average product team is not that good at this. So then the next level is okay, the average product team with an expert researcher. What's that quality look like? Does the AI match that? Right? Then I would say there's even another level, because even our expert researchers that are trained in industry, their level of expertise is industry level expertise. So now let's get to the next layer of really good qualitative synthesis. How does it compare to that? And what I'm excited about is I do think AI has the potential to help all teams do way better high quality synthesis, but it's probably not going to be the product team just writing a prompt. It's probably going to be tooling that has this expertise built in, simply because product teams just don't have the expertise.
And probably the tooling, as far as I understood you, isn't one LLM checking, but probably orchestrating different roles, maybe, of LLMs.
Yeah, so I'll explain a little bit about what I'm building. And I don't mean they have to use my tool. I think there's going to be lots of players in this space. I think the key...
Everyone, use her tool. Go into the show notes afterwards. Use Teresa's
I think the
tool.
Key here is when we're synthesizing research, we always want to synthesize it from a point of view. What's our research question? What are we trying to learn? So for example, if you use a tool like Maze is trying to become, or Dovetail is trying to become a research repository for user research teams. User research teams do a wide variety of types of research, and they might have different research questions. And the way you synthesize that research is going to be different from what I would argue a product team should be doing. So I teach product teams in my continuous discovery framework story-based customer interviews. So it's a very specific type of interview. And the purpose of that interview is to identify unmet needs, pain points, and desires. Okay, so it's not all research. I'm not doing research synthesis for all research. I'm saying for story-based interviews in the context of a product team, can you find opportunities? That's a much narrower problem. It's much more opinionated. I can define what an opportunity is. I can explain the context of continuous discovery, right? And now, so like what I'm building, I have a partnership with a company called Vistaly. They build opportunity solution tree software. And so what I'm doing with them is we're building AI generated interview snapshots. So you upload a transcript. My service identifies the key moments. So what happened in that story. And then it also generates opportunities. And then once you have at least 3 interviews, we generate a first draft of your opportunity solution tree. Every additional 2 to 3 interviews, we update your tree. So there's a couple things that I think are important here. This is for product teams that are interviewing continuously, right? It's not all research. It's a very specific type of research, which means we can tailor the synthesis to that type of research. There's 2 levels of synthesis, and this is, I think, really critical. The first level is what did I learn in this single interview? And the second level is what did I learn across interviews? These are 2 very different AI tasks. They're also 2 very different human synthesis tasks. And a lot of teams conflate both, right? They don't do the single interview synthesis. They just dump all the transcripts into a folder and hope that the AI sorts it out. And even with that, okay, so now I've taken a hard problem, all research synthesis. I've made it easier by saying, nope, we're focusing on one type of interview with this purpose in this format, and we're looking for opportunities. It's still not a prompt, right? Like the work to do an AI generated interview snapshot has many prompts. It has many correction loops. It has checks for hallucinations. It has framing checks. Did we frame it the way the customer said it? Do we frame it so it's not about your solution and it's about the customer's need? There's a lot that goes into this. And I never want to discourage someone from like trying to experiment on their own and writing their own prompts. I think you learn a lot by doing that. But I think we're going to get to the point where experts developing expert AI synthesis tools are going to exceed what most product teams are going to do on their own.
Yeah. I think that's so interesting because like I run into so many mistakes that the LLM did with my interviews. Like one technique that I really like, that I also did before doing this with AI, was to take one thing out of the first interview, exaggerate it, and provoke an answer or provoke a correction in the second interview. And the thing is, with an LLM taking the transcript, they don't understand that I'm using this technique, and I wasn't even able to tell them that I'm using this technique. So what they did is they took my word for granted, said, oh, that's what he's saying is correct because it was in the interview and he was saying it very confidently, right?
Yep.
And sometimes you don't get corrected with a very strong opinion. Sometimes depends on the nature of the person you're interviewing, right? And then you sort of work in wrong data into your own LLM, into your own synthesis. So it was really interesting for me to, once you try this out, doing this yourself, you get to a point where you're no longer able or no longer knowledgeable enough to really fix the issues the LLM is producing. And I think that's basically where your playing field starts with professionals doing this professionally with a professional tool.
Yeah, I think it's a genuinely hard problem. That's first of all, like even as an expert with a lot of background in qualitative research and have been doing this for decades, it's really hard to try to codify in a way that an LLM can. The other thing I'll share is I've been teaching humans this for a long time. And the way that I teach humans is the same way that I teach the LLM. So I also have a huge advantage in that not only do I have expertise in this area,
you have expertise in prompting.
I've been teaching this for a long, long time, right? And that was a huge advantage. When I started experimenting, I didn't realize, I was pleasantly surprised to learn that like the same way I teach humans is actually a really good way to teach LLMs.
Yeah.
But that only matters at the prompt level, right? And like for anybody who's built any AI services, like production quality AI services, I don't mean like the stuff we tinker with for our own personal productivity. All that stuff is great, but unless you're trying to get to like reliable output from across at least hundreds of users, if not thousands or hundreds of thousands of users, it's just a different beast. There's we're getting into evals, we're getting into correction loops, we're getting into really just like failure modes that can pop up anywhere and are like surprisingly diverse when you're talking about lots of users. And so I think if for anybody who has experience with like building a real AI production product, it's easy in our day-to-day life. And I do this too, by the way. Like, it's so easy to be like, oh, I'll just build my own productivity tool. And we like think it's going to be really simple. And then you start to dig into it and you hit your first failure mode and you're like, whatever, I'll just fix this. And then they just keep coming and they keep coming and they keep coming. And at some point you start to have to question, like, where should you be spending your time? Is this the area you want to be an expert in? Or is this an area you can hire a tool to do this job? And I think for most product teams, they're going to hire a tool to do this job.
When people first started to freak out about AI, I have to admit, I was very much on the SaaS is dead hype train for a couple of weeks, where I was like, okay, we're all going to build our own tools. And then I started to build my own tools. I never loved having good products more than I do now. Yeah. No, if you get a good tool, just don't spend time building it, try and clone anything. Because by the time you, like, imagine doing a CRM from scratch now.
Yeah.
I mean, I worked with Salesforce and Pipedrive for quite some time now. And I was like, oh, this shouldn't be too hard, right? But once you dig into it and you see all the thoughts you have to put into it, all the connections that you have to make, and how difficult it is to build a tool that simple. So I really appreciate good products by now. And I think all of the SaaS death spiral phase and people dooming about like the SaaS products, I think that will be over soon, if it's not already.
I think it is fun to build our own tools. I mean, I built my own task management system, and a lot of people think I'm crazy for that. But it turns out I use a tiny sliver of what task management systems offer. Mm-hmm. And the one thing that I wanted, most task management systems don't do really well. Yep. So I could build a tiny sliver of a product, and I built it, almost over a year ago now that I think about it. So I've been using it for a year. I built it in like one weekend. I literally have not had to change it since. And it just works for me.
Yep.
And I love it. And sure enough, like, I'm not going to pay for task management software anymore. And so like you could argue SaaS is dead. But here's the thing, task management software, you probably can't think of a giant player. You can think of lots of little players. And it's because task management is so idiosyncratic. Nobody is going to ever take the whole market. And the only time task management really requires SaaS is when you have a team and you all need to use the same system. So like you mentioned, you're using Notion, right? People use Notion for task management because it's an easy way to share with your team. Mm-hmm. I have people that I work with, but I don't really have a huge interface between me and other people when it comes to task management. So for me personally, this was a very tiny piece of software that I could build that just works for me. That's great. But like, I'm not going to build my blog software. There's nothing that I do with blogging that's idiosyncratic, that like literally every other blog platform just meets my needs out of the box.
Yep.
Right? And so I think like what's fun is we now can build our own tools. I think we're going to make a lot of mistakes about when and how we should build our own tools, but I think we'll settle into a groove. We'll build little utilities that are idiosyncratic, and we'll probably still pay for the core software that runs our businesses.
Yeah. I catch myself from time to time just buying or subscribing to a certain tool, not to use it myself. I'm basically subscribing for Claude to use it for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, here you go. That works better. Take this tool. And I like Make, for example. I'm sure pretty much everyone has heard about Make yet.
Yeah.
And I don't think I have opened it once since I did the subscription. It just runs in the background and does stuff, and Claude does stuff with it. It's kind of weird. It's really weird. And one thing that you mentioned a couple of minutes ago that I wanted to catch up on is that you said if you taught people how to synthesize interviews, and that helped you to teach the LLM on how to synthesize interviews. I had a similar experience just the other way around, working with an LLM in my basement alone for quite some time taught me a bunch on how to onboard people. So when I started my company last year, it was just me and a bunch of AI agents, and I was frustrated with the results that I'm getting from them. So I learned how to provide the right context. I learned how to provide the right information and tools to that LLM. And then when I hired the first couple of employees at my company, and last year, beginning of this year, I very much did it the same way I did with my agents.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure you need context. Here are the documents. Read through them, or feed it to an LLM and let it make that shorter for you. But that taught me so much on how to onboard people better. It was really crazy because before I never had to onboard people that way. And now I have to say, I feel pretty confident doing it.
Yeah, I think what is required to work with the LLM well is we have to become really aware of what's in our head that we haven't shared.
Yeah.
And that's the exact same thing that is required to work well with humans.
Have you had experience with how to make that implicit knowledge more explicit when it comes to interacting with customers, doing interviews, and really know how to move forward?
Do you mean in terms of like helping the team know what to do next, like in discovery?
Yeah, I mean, if you have a very experienced, let's say, product manager, and he or she would be doing interviews or prototyping or, I don't know, making a pop-up shop in a store, whatever, right? And that person has, over the years, accumulated so much implicit knowledge that it's really hard to give that specific job to, let's say, someone fresh out of university.
Yeah.
Even if you give all the, like, here's a process on how to do it, here's a checklist of questions, here are the things, there's just still so much implicit knowledge in the body of that experienced person, like from, let's say, 20, 25 years of doing this.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask you if you have any tips and tricks on how to make that more explicit.
So this is where this is also an area where I think people are starting to get into when they say taste. I think what they really mean, one part of it is expertise, right? So I'm not suggesting when I poo-poo taste, I'm not suggesting that expertise doesn't matter. It absolutely does. And in the like knowledge management world, which is sort of the academic field about what it means to know something, there's a distinction between knowing what, so explicit knowledge, facts, and knowing how. And that's sort of our procedural experiential knowledge. And I think we obviously can document procedures, right? But one of the best ways to understand this is like if you're learning how to hit a tennis ball, you can literally write down the steps for how to hit a tennis ball, but that doesn't teach you how to do it. And I think there's a lot of areas in knowledge work where this is the same. We learn how to do things through a lot of repetition and through a lot of experience. And I think writing it down helps because it helps people like deconstruct it and at least like have a framework to attach their experience to, but they're not going to get good at it until they do it a lot of times. And this is something that in our courses, one of the things that I've hammered on since day one is they're all practice-based. And they're all based on this idea of deliberate practice. So practice the skill, get expert feedback, practice again, get expert feedback, keep practicing. And I think there's no way to short circuit that. You really are going to build expertise through lots of practice. And that doesn't mean you have to work 20 years before you're good at your job. I think actually AI opens a lot of new possibilities for simulating practice, for getting that expert feedback on practice. But I don't, this is why a lot of trades like have apprenticeships for years, right? Because we can learn from watching experts. But we don't just learn by watching, we learn by doing. So we have to, that's why we have like in the teaching world, we have like model it, then they try it, then give feedback, right? So first you see it, then you do it, then you iterate on feedback. This is, I think, it's not going to go away. I don't think AI changes this. I think AI can accelerate the practice rounds. And this is something I'm really excited about. Like in my training business, all the AI tools that I'm building are geared around expert feedback to accelerate practice rounds.
So you mean like not waiting to, let's say if you do interviews, not waiting for the interview to end, but maybe have like already within the interview, like intermediate feedback that you could just use right away within the interview?
More of like short interview, like 5 or 6 minute interviews.
Okay. So you shorten the interview length, then that's
feedback,
the way you shorten feedback.
Do it again.
Okay. Okay, got it.
The challenge with doing it mid-interview is it tends to throw off the interviewer. Like it's not helpful. There's already enough to do during the interview itself. You don't want to interrupt. But if you can do fast rounds, and so like one thing in our story-based interview course, we already have an AI interview coach. So you can do a practice interview in the course, submit your transcript, and you get personalized feedback. The next piece that I'm working on is an AI participant, so that you don't even need another human to practice with. You just interview the AI, you immediately get feedback, and then you can do it again. And one of the things that I'm working on related to that is this idea of almost setting up like storybooks. So like you're a product manager, you're working on this product, here's 3 customers lined up, and you interview them, and there's things that you can uncover in your interview, and whether or not you uncover them like determines whether you pass that sort of storybook, right? And so the idea is you get a module, you practice, you get feedback. It tells you there was things you didn't uncover. You try again, you get feedback, right? And so just ways to build in really a lot of reps without having to talk to 100 real customers before you feel comfortable interviewing.
Where do people find that tool?
And we have a course called Story-Based Customer Interviews, and it's at learn.producttalk.org.
Okay, put that into the show notes.
Yeah.
2 final questions. Question number 1: if people want to dig deeper into the topic, or maybe you want to reach out or have questions, what is a good platform or way to reach out to you?
Yeah, the easiest way to find me is at producttalk.org. There's a contact form. It goes to me. It's also where you can find a ton of my writing and also our courses. I am on LinkedIn. It's not the best place to reach out because my LinkedIn inbox is a nightmare, so it mostly gets ignored. And then I am on X as well.
Okay. Second question: what should I ask Petra Wille about when I'm interviewing her?
Oh, good question. Petra is delightful in all ways, so I feel like you could ask her almost anything and she's going to have something.
So I'm having her in, I think, 2 weeks.
Okay. Petra lately has been really like nerding out on leadership qualities, and especially in product leadership. What I like about this is most leaders frame product like operating model transformations as my teams need to change. And they forget to look at how do I need to change as a leader. And I love that Petra does a ton of work in that area. So that could be a fun area to explore with her.
Okay. Great. Teresa, thank you so much for these insights. Thank you so much for coming onto the pod.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun.
And for everyone else, now's a good time to open up the show notes and check out the links below. All right, then see you soon.